So welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. This is night 2 of So You're Thinking About Graduate School. This is our graduate student panel. I'm really excited. We have 4 really great panelists that are going to share their experience and some advice and tips and all that good stuff. I have some questions prepared, but please also feel free to put questions in the chat. We will definitely give you the opportunity as well to ask questions after we kind of get some of the introductory questions out of the way. So the first thing that I am going to ask our panelists to do is to please tell us a little bit about yourself. That could be academic, professional, personal background, whatever you think is appropriate. And I'm going to let Grace start.
Okay, so can everyone hear me? I'm Grace. I'm a third-year PhD student working at the University of Maryland College Park Geology Department. So I'm in my office right now, and I have to apologize. The lighting issue in my office is not really well. So unfortunately, none of us can see my beautiful faces clearly. But other than that, I'm an international student. I'm originally from China. However, this is my 8th year staying in the United States. I had my undergrad at Franklin Marshall College, a small liberal arts college in Pennsylvania, where the Amish lives. And then I had a geology major and a chemistry minor in my undergrads. And without any gap year, I got into the PhD program that I'm currently in. So right now, my research focuses on life detection in space, and we are designing and miniaturizing instruments and send them to planetary environments. We are trying to search for trace of life in the space, and that's all about how cool I am. That's it.
All right, who wants to go next?
I can go next. So I'm Lindsay Rodeo. I'm currently a 3rd-year PhD student in atmospheric and oceanic science here at UMD. I did my undergrad at Florida Institute of Technology and Meteorology. I initially went in because I wanted to do weather forecasting, but life had other plans for me. So now I'm here working on my PhD. I currently study, I work with air quality models. So basically I'm trying to run this regulatory model that the EPA uses that can help guide policy relevant decisions. Currently looking at coal burning power plants and how they affect regional haze. Outside of my PhD program, I also run a Kindle business just for fun because I like arts and crafts. So like video games, going for walks, so on and so forth. So that's pretty much all about me.
I can go next. Hi, I'm Sarah Burnett. I'm a 5th-year PhD candidate, hoping to graduate in June. So I started my education at the University of North Carolina as a applied math and physics undergrad. And I did a little research there in a lab doing experiments in fluid dynamics, which I thought were super fun. I didn't know you could take math and physics and actually do stuff with it. I thought most people who were good at STEM would become doctors, and so it was kind of a new and cool thing to do research. And from there, I graduated, and I went and worked at Los Alamos National Lab for a year before applying to graduate school, just to get a little money in the bank, because graduate school applications can be a bit expensive. And then that was part of what's called a post-baccalaureate program, which I can talk about if you'd like. So I did computational physics simulations. So I used a lot of really big computers to do simulations of like hot metal. And now I'm working I'm in the Applied Math and Scientific Computing program, which means you can do a lot of different things. It's a very interdisciplinary program. So I work, my advisors right now are in the physics department and atmospheric and oceanic sciences. So Daniel Lathrop and Kaio Ide respectively. And I work on simulations and analyzing magnetohydrodynamic experiment. You might have heard of it. It's called the 3-meter spherical quet experiment, and it's in the Energy Research Building. It's a huge, giant experiment filled with hot sodium, and then we throw a magnetic field through that. And the purpose of this is to better understand the Earth's magnetic field and how it's sustained by its interaction between the liquid outer core deep within Earth. So with that, with an experiment, we can kind of get more data than we can within a lifetime measuring Earth's fields. So that's currently my thesis work. I'm working on that. And I've got an offer to be an assistant adjunct professor at the University of Los Angeles in their math department. Yeah, very exciting.
Congratulations. I'll go right into it. My name is Trevon Swain. I actually graduated a while back with an underdegree degree in chemistry at Hampton University. I actually, right after, decided to accept an internship at the FDA. It was supposed to be a 3-year program. It actually got cut short, but they hired me as a full-time employee. So there I became a staff chemist, and I've actually been there for 11 years now. So what I recently did was I did all my research on campus at the FDA. So so for the last 7 years, I was a grad student and a full-time employee. However, November, I recently defended my PhD in biochemistry. And so now, technically, based off of the admin and deadlines, I actually graduate this spring, well, I guess next month, but I've completed it back in November. My research was on really looking at different biomolecules that correlate with inflammation in swine. We do a full, in research, we collaborate with different offices in order to make sure that drugs are sustainable, are under the regulations and standards that we're looking for, and making sure that no residues are entering the food chain. And so that's just kind of a little bit of what I've been doing. And like I said, I've been there for about 11 years now, and I'm still with the FDA.
Awesome, thank you. Alrighty, so maybe this is a broad question, but how did you know that you wanted to go to graduate school? Was there a certain experience? Is it that you knew that there was something that you wanted to do specifically? And I'm going to pick on Sarah to go first this time.
Sure. So graduate school was not something I had on my radar going in undergrad. It's not something my family really did. I think I learned I wanted to go to graduate school when I started doing research as part of a lab group. And I met graduate students and they seemed not miserable. They liked the research, and they had fun discussing it, and just hearing them talk about it, they sounded so passionate about it. And I was like, wow, I don't have to be a doctor with STEM. I can be, well, different kind of doctor. So I got to learn more about what graduate school has to offer and how there's different programs. At the time, I only applied to applied math, but if I had done it again, I probably would have applied to many different programs, just because you can interdisciplinarily, dabble in different fields that way. And also really admired and liked teaching, like giving or going through a subject and explaining it to my peers and having them get that moment when they learn something and they feel good about it, because it's quite a process, especially to learn the subjects we learn in graduate school. They're not usually taught. You can't just Google them as much as you want to. There's a process to it. And so I went to graduate school also to kind of learn how to teach others and share my love of learning.
choice. What about you, Lindsay?
I kind of had a bit of a weird, wild ride deciding on grad school. So I initially went into undergrad thinking that I could work for the National Weather Service. They only require a bachelor's degree. So I'm like, okay, then as soon as I graduate, I'm going to apply for that. I had an advisor in undergrad who kind of pressured students to go into grad school. So it was kind of like a turnoff thinking about it. But I ended up getting an internship between my junior and senior year of college. And it was studying air quality with a bunch of folks at NASA Langley Research Center. Great experience. And a lot of the people that worked there had working relationships with people in my the program that I'm currently in. And so a lot of them talked highly about a lot of the faculty members here. Some of them did their postdocs there. Some of them used to work as adjunct professors. So they were pressuring me like, hey, like you're really good at this. If you really enjoy this, you should consider applying. And I did. I really enjoyed the people that I was working with, enjoyed the project that I was doing. I wanted to continue doing that research. And so I ultimately was like, I'm going to apply for it. I remember talking to my branch head at some point, and I jokingly said, hi, you should like hire me after I'm done with my bachelor's. And he's like, I'll hire you once you get your PhD. And so that was kind of my motivator. Like, yes, I'm going to go get my PhD. I'm going to work for NASA one day. And so I was lucky enough to end up getting accepted into this program. And I'm currently working on stuff that's similar to what I was doing. So I feel like I hit the jackpot with the trajectory. It was a little bit weird, didn't want to go into grad school, felt pressured. And then ultimately, yes, you know what, this is a good fit for me. So I feel like for some people, it's not their initial, they don't plan on going to grad school, it just happens. That's kind of what happened to me, but I'm really happy with how everything turned out.
What about you, Trevon? Why did you decide to go to graduate school?
Yeah, so everyone has a unique story. So I think my senior year in undergrad, I went to go tour some grad schools, and I ran into somebody who was a graduate student, and she just hated it. She was like, "This isn't for me. I'm in the lab. This is miserable." And I was like, "Whoa, this is not the route that I would want to be going." And so I took some time, and I decided if research is something I want to do, let me try the internship, try it out for a little while, and see what ends up happening. And so that's what I did. I got into the FDA internship. I really liked research. And then what I saw was, there's really three main ways to really succeed, I think, in this field. Really, it's got to be academia, industry, or the government. And, I've actually never TA before, so that wasn't the route that I wanted to go. And within the government, I just realized positions were really based off of your degree. And really, there was a glass ceiling there. And so if I really wanted to excel or to move forward, really not just within the lab, but to run my own lab or beyond the lab, to be in a reviewer state or whatever the case may be, I really need a PhD. And I had, my boss had multiple degrees as far as MBA, a vet degree, and a PhD. So, if that's the kind of competition that you're having, you really got to look in the mirror and say, this is the route that I want to. I'm going to, in order for me to be competitive within this field, I should probably get a degree. And so with that, I was able to, once again, had an opportunity to go back to school while working. And so I was able to still do what I wanted to do and still passionate about the work, but also get the degree at the same time. It wasn't, the stars didn't always align that way, but that's kind of the route I wanted to go. I saw the glass ceiling, and in order for me to really be successful, I felt as though I would have to get some credentials.
Great, thanks. And Grace?
So for me, I think it's a mixture of like all three of them has been said. So in my undergrad, I have done lots of different research, and most of them are like having those aha moments. So there will be some of them trying to analyze the chemistry of a 2,000 years old pottery in order to understand how social interaction happens 2,000 years ago for a specific civilization. Or you're trying to understand the morphology or chemistry of a specific shell fragment from a rock And then you're trying to understand how a basin was formed a billion years ago through the stratigraphy that you built. So it is all of those tiny research, like you look things into detail and then trying to build a story out of it. And then that aha moment really excites me. And then it makes me realize research can be a lot of fun in an unimaginative way, in a way that you never thought of. And there will be lots of collaboration between lots of disciplines, not until you try them and then really reach there. You never know, there will be more surprise to explore. So by the time, when I was about to apply to graduate, I thought about graduate school because I have that genuine passion of doing research. But at the same time, I have to admit that I'm afraid to find a job. I don't know how to find a job. So compared to the pressure that I may or may not have by staying in graduate school versus the pressure that I need to find a job immediately, otherwise I cannot afford myself. I choose to apply for graduate school by chance and see what I can get. And for most of people, I wish most of people here know, like for now, that in graduate school you have stipend. So although the salary is very minimum, you won't get a very high standard of living out of it, but you can definitely survive. And then you will have fun, you will have the opportunity to know more people and gain knowledge. So I just did it and then tried it out. And now I really appreciate this opportunity.
That stipend covers your tuition too, which is good compared to undergrad to have that covered.
So since we're, talking about stipend and tuition stuff, let's jump to that question. How did you go about funding graduate school? Did you apply for an NSF grant? Did you have to TA before, or was it just a research grant? Any tips for finding funding? And let's start with Trevon this time.
Yeah, like I said, I'm in a unique situation. So my salary was the government salary. My funding was based off of the government funding the projects. Now, the issue was that I had to make sure my projects aligned within the government, within my division. So it was a very narrow field in order to get it to align. But I never had to apply for a grant, and the tuition was covered as well because that was considered training. So that's probably a unique situation. And I know I'm really the oddball when it comes to that. So it's a very specific type of thing. So.
Hey, that's okay. There are a lot of different ways to get funding. So you are here to help represent that. So that's great.
Right. Yeah.
Lindsay, how about you?
So my advisor is in charge of the undergrad program, and he takes care of a lot of like introductory courses. And so when I got hired on, he was like, I'd like you to TA for me. And I'm like, that works out because I really enjoyed tutoring when I was an undergrad. So that kind of covered my whole first year, the stipend. And then so in the summer, I was in charge of finding my own research. And so I ended up getting in contact with people that I used to work with during my internships. And they were like, yeah, we'll cover you. So that whole year I was covered. Funding kind of fell flat for my second year. My advisor couldn't get, he had trouble getting his proposals funded. So I ended up TAing a second year, which is a bit stressful because you're trying to finish classes and TAing at the same time and doing really stressful. But luckily after my second year, my advisor ended up coming across a bunch of people from the Department of Energy, and they were like, we'll fund you guys to do X, Y, Z. And so I kind of just like fell into it because my advisor ended up meeting these people and they were interested in doing air quality work. But during my second year, I was a bit worried about how I was going to get funded. So I applied for the NSF grad student. I don't remember what it's called. But you basically write a proposal, right? Here's what I'm going to do. Here's a little bit about me. And I actually utilized the Grad Writing Center, which was really helpful to help me write that proposal. ultimately didn't get funded. Those things are really competitive anyway, but I was kind of lucky how I fell into the DOE funding. But yeah, some people in my program ended up getting this like NASA finesse fellowship. So some people get fellowships, some people get funding elsewhere. Some people end up TAing. So it really just depends on what your situation is in my program.
Grace, what about you?
I think my program is similar to Lindsay's. It really depends on your situation, especially your advisor's current situation. So your funding source may come from different area. My funding actually are government funding because the project that I'm working on actually funded by NASA right now. However, I have to mention that other source of funding, such as applying for fellowship or teaching, those are all valuable experiences. Even with the funding that we have, we still need to constantly write for proposal, trying to apply for our own fellowship. Because when you graduate, no matter what job you are in or which career you are going, academia, industry, or whatsoever, you have to demonstrate the capability for convincing whoever has the money to give you money to do the project that you want to do. And a writing proposal, winning fellowship is a great way to train those skills. Of course, lots of failure and the rejections and the tears, but you have to do that, and everyone is doing that. And then on the other hand, tutoring is a great experience for training your communication, mentoring skills. If you want to pursue any degree or trying to build your leadership or trying to pursue a degree in professorship, those are all important in your resume. So I would say in the end, no matter you have funding or not having funding, you will end up trying all of those, and then all of them will become a valuable experience for you.
So I had several sources of funding. Well, math department, if you don't know it, has a ton of TAs. So they always need TAs. So when I was accepted in there, it was guaranteed I'd have 5 years of funding to teach. So it was very safe. I never had to look for funding. I could just teach. But then again, teaching does take a lot of time, especially grading. If you want to be very thorough grader, it takes a lot of time. So I've only taught a few semesters. What I did do is I applied it to the National Science Foundation Graduate Fellowship, and I got that before my first year. So what that does is it funds 3 out of your 5 years, fully funded throughout the year, including the summer. So that's really nice. And on top of that, you can teach a quarter time if you request to. So have a little bit more money to work with. And like Grace said, I applied to everything. I just, if there's a grant, if there's an award, I apply to that, because why not? You got to put your name out there or else you can't win it at all. So I try to apply to a lot of things, and I get rejected most of the time, but it's like, at least you tried, you know? And another source of funding, besides like the NSF Graduate Fellowship, there's also fellowships like the Department of Energy has a lot of money. So they have a similar thing where I think it's like 3 years, and then during the summer you work at one of their labs. And Department of Defense is another one too that has a fellowship, I know. And because I did like this post-baccalaureate program at the National Lab, I could have continued the research I was doing into graduate school and probably gotten funded by them. Like, one of the great things about the University of Maryland, and I think Trevon's found, is that it's close in proximity to a lot of government agencies like NIST, NIH, in addition to the FDA, NOAA, NASA, and these places are places where you can find sources of funding, or you might have a professor, an advisor who's affiliated with them. and they can find funding for you from internal grants in their agencies. So it might take a little bit of Googling to apply for money yourself through your own fellowships, your own graduate fellowships, or it might take a little bit of researching what professors research and who they're affiliated with, because they might have grants, and you might help them apply for those grants too by contributing, which is a good process. Like Grace was saying, writing a grant is something that you might have to, a proposal, I guess in the private industry, is something you might have to do in the future to build your team, to find funding for your research and such. So there are avenues, and it does take a little bit of work to look through them, and some rejections, but that's part of the game.
Yeah, bouncing off of what she just said, you don't have to wait until you're in grad school to apply to these fellowships. The NSF fellowship, you can apply as an undergraduate.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely encourage anyone to apply to those. It's a good experience, so you learn how to write a proposal.
Yeah, I think the rule now, and it's free to apply to those. I think the only cost was maybe sending a transcript. Unlike graduate schools, the fellowships, they're like free to apply to. They take time, but you'll have to pay $100 or $200 or so. And I think for NSF, you can apply once before graduate school and then once during, if I remember correctly. So unless they change that again, I don't remember.
I think it's like you can apply your first and second year of grad school. Once you're a third year, you can apply. I think you can apply at most 2 times in undergrad. I could be wrong.
Alrighty. I'm going to ask one more question and then start opening it up to students that might have questions. So if you've been sitting here listening and you're starting to have questions and you'd like to ask them, you can either send the question in the chat, or if you want to ask your question out loud, you can send me a message and let me know what you want to be added to the list. But while you're thinking about that, I'm going to ask, oh, here's a good one. When I do appointments with students, a lot of students, when they're thinking about graduate school, want to know how many graduate schools to apply to. Is there some magic number, right? So maybe share how many schools you applied to. Do you think you applied to enough, or too many, or not enough? How did you know that Maryland's program was the right one for you? What helped you make some of those decisions? And I'll have Lindsay start this time.
Okay, so I applied to 6 grad schools. I got denied flat out by 4 of them. The 5th one I got accepted to only because it was in state, but they were not offering any kind of stipend or tuition remission. And I'm like, I don't want to pay to do research for this school. And then Maryland accepted me, tuition remission, stipend, full package. And it worked out because that was my top school. That was my top choice. And so my older sister, she went through her PhD program and she kept telling me, don't go to a school where you have to pay for grad school if you're going to be working for them. And so my goal was, I'm going to go to the first school that gives me a tuition remission and a stipend. And it just kind of worked out. Things fell into the right places. So I think I applied to the right amount. You always got to have backup schools just in case. Sometimes grad school it's a bit competitive depending on what school you're applying to. So I do recommend applying to a couple just so you do have that backup plan. But like I said before, things kind of just worked out for me because I happen to work with people who were affiliated with UMD before, just so I can continue the type of research that I was doing. The research that I am doing currently, it's not many places do it. So like Maryland is known for doing this type of research, and it's one of the modeling centers across the East Coast. And so that kind of helped guide my decision. They just did the research that I wanted to specifically focus on. So things just kind of worked out.
Great. I had a similar experience, Lindsay, obviously not in science, but when I was applying to master's programs, I applied to 5 or 6, I forget. Was only accepted to one, but it was my first choice. So it took the sting out of being rejected from other ones for sure. Although I do think things work out, so that's great. Grace, what about you?
So I applied to 9, so I applied a lot. I have several tips. The first one is when you apply, for example, within your budget, that many of school, the first thing you need to do is to tear your options of university by different category. One is a little bit higher than your current ability, so it's kind of like your dream school, you wish to catch it, but then there will be some risk. One is kind of like at the same level to your current capability. And then there are another category that's like really safe choice. You are sure you can get in. I will also pick those university based on their location, the ranking, and also advisor and then their available projects. Those are important for me to choose where I want to apply to. If none of them actually match, I will actually not pick them. And then secondly, I would talk to someone in my department. And then, for example, any faculty member in my department, and then hear their suggestions. Because within the field, sometimes they may have more internal news about which university have a larger round of changing students, and they may need more people in their department. So they will have a higher probability of hiring more students versus other school, they may have fewer students leaving, so they only have limited space for hiring students. And then the other thing I will ask for faculty member is like internal recommendation for specific department or professor. Some of the professor, they can be great in their field, but they are in a university that is not that famous. However, their research is really good, and if you work with them and they are really nice to work with, that will be a great value. Or if they can connect you with that potential advisor, that will be great connection as well. I would also try to search online, trying to find, usually in their website, they will say if they need graduate student or no. I would even contact any listed graduate student there. So by searching all those information, I will settle down a few universities that within my limit of budget, and I have a wide range of probability for getting into those schools and the research project that I love, and then I will start applying.
Great. What about you, Sarah?
So I applied to quite a few graduate schools. I applied to 12 and mostly got rejected. I got into 5 out of the 12 because I just went for it. I was like, Caltech, here I go. But no, they only accept like 5 people. So you got to be like the cream of the crop. Yeah, I got accepted into 5, which is, I think, pretty good. And one thing I didn't realize when I was applying is there's a thing called waivers, fee waivers, which you should look into early because they will cut the cost in like half because it could be expensive when you're applying to multiple ones. And in the end, I made like a whole spreadsheet about the graduate schools and trying to make a decision. One of the biggest factors I think to help me decide is what kind of opportunities I could have in this graduate school in terms of research, because you don't want to only have one person of interest that you could do research with. Like I like fluid dynamics, that's what I wanted to study. And one of the schools I was looking at, there's only one person in the department who did fluid dynamics, and that's kind of a risk. Here at the University of Maryland, there's a bunch of people I could do research with, so I could kind of learn what they're doing first and then get started from there. With math programs, you're not expected to start research until, so I was emailing professors beforehand asking about if I could talk to them about their research, and they're like, why? Well, you can wait a little bit, but like physics, engineering, those are ones you definitely want to reach out to professors beforehand, because they'll also possibly keep you in mind for funding. And the other factor that made me choose graduate school is like, well, I'm married, so I had to look for things that my partner could do, and being that there was a lot of work in DC in this area, then he was able to find a job within a few months of me starting at graduate school. Yeah, you'll get to visit the departments that you apply to. They'll invite you for a visitor weekend, so you can kind of pick up some vibes from that, and also, I mean, explore campuses, which is fun. But yeah, I think that's all I had.
Yeah, I applied to one. It was University of Maryland. It was mainly because of location. I was already at the FDA. I needed somewhere I could go pretty close to. I was talking to colleagues, supervisors, and at first I initially was just going to apply for. This is what I actually did. I applied as an advanced special student, and I took a graduate class to see, okay, is this something I kind of want to do, and got in. I mean, it was pretty, once you have your undergrad degree, you can just apply, and I just took a course, and I got a feeling for, okay, this is probably something I'm interested in, and then I applied as a graduate student, and I was actually going to apply as my master's. However, everyone was saying, well, why don't you apply for your PhD? If you don't like it, you can always master out. And, that's always an opportunity that a lot of people don't talk about. And so I was like, you know what, that's right. So I will try to apply for the PhD. And I got in. And, Grace kind of talked on a little bit. It's never too early to network. And I think that's something that I would like to emphasize if you don't leave anything up today. Network, talk to graduate students who are currently in the program, ask them how their experiences, how is funding, how are they as a mentor? Because, when you are having your future, your potential in somebody else's hands, you want to make sure that they're guiding you, because there's been horror stories where maybe they're your first graduate student and they don't know how to get you out of the program, and you spend years just going in circles and not being able to work with different committee members. And so you really want to just do your due diligence and network and talk to people about what their experience is like. How is it, the campus? Because, you can read a lot of things, but to get firsthand experience from those who are currently in the program is valuable information. It will help you along in your process, especially when you realize this process isn't like any professional school. It's not a straight line. It's not 3 years and you're done. It's not just checking off boxes or checking off courses. You can go up and down. It can be long and short. It can be progress, but you need to be able to keep that end goal inside. And even within our program, I mean, I think I started off with maybe like 10 people who started off in that program that we were close with, and maybe 5 of them mastered out, 3 of them actually completed degrees. So it can change, and you just have to make sure you kind of are prepared for that, or being flexible, whatever that looks like for you, because graduate school isn't for everybody, and that's okay. But you got to be able to kind of navigate it and understand what's going to work best for you. And so that's the reason why I applied for one. Hey, if this works, not great. If not, I'll continue to pivot and kind of decide what works out for you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, so we're going to move now to questions from attendees. Alejandro wants to ask his question, so I'll turn it over to him.
Yo, what's up? Thanks for coming to talk today. Really appreciate it. So I really want to do interdisciplinary research, specifically exploring how the performing arts can be integrated into STEM applications. And I'm already kind of doing that. So I'm a senior general biology major right now, and I also make music and perform it. And I want to keep taking that seriously. And I also am working on a startup event company that wants to be involved in STEM education with an integration of the arts. So I want to keep doing all this music stuff, but incorporate either a master's like program or a PhD program that is, I want everything to be connected in terms of, I want my research to be making my events and my concerts like cooler. I just want it to be connected. So like, how hard is it to get, so like, honestly, like the best way for me to do this is to convince a university to let me create my, or design my own master's program. And I already emailed the UMD grad school a bunch and they just won't answer me. And so is it like impossible to design your own master's program like at UMD or at a university?
I will hop in here just because I have a look. So I had to present an off-campus project to University of Maryland to kind of basically say, hey, I want to do all this research here. It's not really in line with these on-campus advisors. However, I still need an on-campus advisor to buy in. You know, I think it's a unique situation that you're in. I think you really got to kind of think about what can I focus on as far as a graduate program, and start maybe thinking about incorporating that as extracurricular activities, or what you would try to do afterwards, or try to integrate that, because it may be a little difficult to really bridge those gaps. I'm not saying that's impossible, but you know, as far as when you talk about the long-term play, and that's what I always try to focus on is, okay, graduate school is just X amount of years. I can focus and build upon this passion later on. I mean, even myself, like, hey, chemistry was my undergrad. However, my biochemistry, I integrated in different ways, and I'm actually trying to migrate out of the laboratory because I've been in it for so long. But I had to get some sort of foundation and base with it. And I'm not saying it's not impossible, but it's something that you got to take in consideration. What's more important for you? Because the great thing is, once you start to have credentials, more people are going to listen to you, or more people are going to take you serious. And so it's unfortunate that's how it is, but it's something to be mindful of.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's so like another thing, like for my situation is that like, I know you didn't say this at all, but I'm not trying to have my resume like be like, because of this like degree or this like research experience, like I'm qualified to do like X, Y, or Z. Like I don't want to work for anyone. So I'm gonna have my own startup company, and while I'm also doing my own music. So the point of the master's or PhD program would be to make my concerts like next level, like using advanced tech. So I'm literally just using it as like an exploratory like experience in life. So that's why I want to make it interdisciplinary. I don't know if that clarifies.
You muted.
Yeah, no, I was done talking.
I wonder if certain types of schools are more open to creating your own program. Like my undergrad, University of North Carolina, everyone hears about it because of basketball, but it is a liberal arts school. And I have heard of people creating at least undergrad programs, different majors. So it could be that UMD is more rigid in terms of creating programs. And like liberal arts school might have more opportunities to create and build your own class structure. Because it sounds like you want to more take classes more like a la carte because you have a vision in mind. Yeah. So for you, yeah, you might want to just look at schools in terms of what kind of courses they offer. But yeah, that's a very interesting question, because I just applied to graduate schools like one program, one thing, and I didn't even think outside the box. And I think that's really cool. And I know people who didn't do graduate school, the standard route, what they did is just took graduate classes and they built the tools they needed, so they didn't have to actually attend a graduate school for 2 or 4 years. They just did in their undergrad an extra semester or so, and took the classes they needed, and then they were able to start, working immediately from that because they had those skills. So you got a lot of options. I don't know if that advice helped, but it doesn't sound like you're going to have the same route as most people, but you'll get there.
Yeah. One last thing. So like I'm like pretty sure I want it to be UMD, just because UMD is getting a lot more resources in different fields, and I've been creating relationships with the people in charge of those resources over the past 2 years. like in the last half of undergrad. Like for example, like the Performing Arts Center just got a $9 million grant for technology related to performing arts. And so I like talked to literally everyone involved over the past like month, so that way they all know who I am. And I tried to like, there's only 3 job postings, but for 2 of them you needed a PhD, and I'm about to finish my bachelor's, so that was donezo. And then for the other one, I just also wasn't qualified for that. So there's that grant that just got offered, and then like the bioengineering's brand spanking new, and then the computer building's brand spanking new. So there's all this new cool stuff that's popping up at UMD. So I'm pretty sure I want it to be a UMD. It's just a matter of like, can I convince like the grad school, like the entirety of whoever the head honcho is of grad school at UMD to let me design my own thing. But yeah, I think I'm just, yeah, never mind.
I really like interdisciplinary study as well. And I love your passion, right? You want to merge everything. That is so cool, because part of my project is trying to fuse art and the science that I'm doing. I'm trying to create music of protein based on their amino acid sequence or stuff like that. So I understand that, but then the way I think about PhD program is that they are trying to develop skills by paying you money. So which means there will be an employer. They theoretically should in campus the knowledge or skills that you are trying to develop. Someone is in charge of you. So I would say, if you want to create your own program, one thing hard is that it's hard to find one advisor or 2 advisors who can actually know the diverse disciplines that you are building. Second is it's hard to find a specific funding that can help you to develop the concert or do all the creative project that you want to do. So instead, I would suggest separate skills and the results you want to achieve. For example, if you want to develop advanced music or signal processing skills that you want to use in your concert, maybe do a PhD program in signal processing or stuff like that. I'm not really sure about what you want to do, but separate them. And then the concert or the startup company, they can be the side project that you do on your own while you're doing your PhD. They don't have to go together. They don't have to merge together in your PhD degree. If your advisor happen to support you as an interdisciplinary researcher, that would be great. And I'm sure you will find passionate science communicator in the field who love to join you, but it doesn't have to all be included in one specific program, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. I guess like my like last like follow-up question would be then on kind of like sort of on the topic of like, I want to make sure that grad school is free, because if I have to be a teaching assistant, that means I have less time to work on my startup and on my music. So that's something I don't, not that I love teaching. I have a lot of teaching experience like throughout like undergrad and high school, but I would prefer, if it's possible, to attend grad school for free, but not in return have to be being a teaching assistant. So I guess like, in order to pay for the funding of a grad school, is it like, are there like academic full rides for grad school where like they just pay for all the tuition and like a housing stipend and like no questions, like that's that?
Not that
Or is
I
it more like you have to do research in return?
research or teaching in return. Yeah. And
I mean,
usually,
what you always can do is apply for a fellowship. You can write your own proposal saying, here's how I want to connect these things. I know for NSF, I ended up getting denied because mine wasn't too interdisciplinary. Like it was just this and not this. So you always can do that. Try to find someone on campus that like an advisor that would possibly be interested in helping you bridge together your interests. But just like Grace said, it might be hard to find this plus this together. And it might be hard to create that. So you always can try to find a program you're interested in, apply for a fellowship where you write down what research you want to do. And that can cover your tuition and your stipends. But it might be a little difficult finding a way to bridge that, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, and that's a good point. The only thing I would say is kind of what Sarah was saying as well. Just reach out, maybe even reach out to some of these liberal arts schools who do have undergrad, like create your own degree and see what their suggestions are, because maybe they have connections or they know maybe a school somewhere else that would be more flexible. But that's probably the best advice I can give you on that particular subject.
Yeah, so
I'm
UMD electric
sorry,
design.
Alejandro. I think we need to move on because we do have some other people that have questions. So you and I can connect after this for sure. Okay. Thanks for understanding. So the next attendee, there's an attendee named Grace that also had a question.
Hi, thanks for talking to us tonight. So I am like looking to potentially get a PhD and then end up working for the government, kind of like Trevon was talking about. And I was wondering, are there things that I should be doing differently when I'm applying and also when I'm in grad school as compared to someone who like wants to end up in academia?
As far as like how to get into government, so I think there's a lot of collaboration. I don't know. Did you tell me what's your PhD field that you would be interested in?
Yeah, so I'm a biology major right now.
Biology.
Biology. So yeah, something like related to that.
Yeah, so I know some people who actually started off at University of Maryland and were able to get to work off campus at these particular sites and still be a graduate student, kind of the opposite of what I did. So I was an FDA employee that would take some classes at University of Maryland and was in the program, but there's some people who were actually University of Maryland that did collaborations with the government, off campus sites. They did conduct work, collaborations and things of that matter. So it's an opportunity for you. As far as getting into the government, there's multiple different ways, especially after you graduate. There are fellowship programs, there are postdocs within the government itself that you can kind of get in there. And there's a whole procedure on how to like construct a resume, how to get in there. And once you get to that stage, you can kind of see what that looks like as far as you're stepping to the government. Because once you get in there, you can kind of move within there. And that's what you see a lot of times. People switch different agencies, different offices, different divisions. Myself, I stuck with my same office because if I moved, I couldn't do the research because all my research was out of a particular office. Now, since I've completed, I'm looking at different options and flexibility. But once you get in, there's, especially in this area, there's ways, a lot of different collaborations that happen. So I think that's probably, once you get in there, of course, I think a lot of your professors would have a lot of standing relationships with these organizations. It would kind of help you and guide you as long as you're clear, like this is the route that I kind of want to go. Teaching's not really the route, industry I'm not too fond about. What's the way to kind of guide? And you can kind of, there'd be more panels like this to kind of help you really perfect your way to get inside the government. And there's a lot of job fairs that happen within there, especially that you see a lot of representatives from different organizations that can kind of help you in that process.
So some people in my program, some will sit on campus and just have like funding from NASA and NOAA. So those are the two main places that people tend to get funding from in my program. Or some will actually sit at NASA or sit on the NOAA campus and work from there. So some people, they'll just reach out to some of the civil servants that they're interested in working with, like, hey, I really like your research. Can you tell me more about it? Can you tell me anything about research opportunities? So you always can reach out to these people, start a conversation with them, get your foot in the door, basically. Or you can apply to fellowships. There's the NASA CMNS scholarship that goes out every year, or not scholarship, it's fellowship. You also can do the postdoc, just like Trevon said. Get your foot in the door that way. So try to reach out to as many people as you can. There's no like one clear way to get into the government.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, so we have another question about work-life balance. How do you manage it? Are you supporting, a spouse or kids in grad school? Do you feel like it's been a good choice or could be a good choice for someone living and supporting a family?
I can go. So I actually, I defended last year. However, I am married and I actually just had a daughter. And so I was a new dad writing my thesis and trying to defend all at the same time. So work-life balance isn't something I really know too much about. However, I will say that yeah, I think with your spouse, you're really gonna have to have an open conversation about like what's expectations, how we can kind of handle this, navigate expenses, and what it looks like. I mean, Sarah kind of mentioned before, you moved to this area, your husband is able to find, a place to work, and I think that's important as well. But I think it's tough. I mean, there's also support groups for spouses within the University of Maryland, which they can come and talk to about how to kind of help. Because as I said before, it's not a certain deadline or a concrete time frame. It may vary. You may think that you have, I thought I was going to get out in 4 or 5 years, but it took me a little longer for sure. And you just never know. And so having this support system that kind of understands of what the budget is going to be and how your current standings, I think is very important. It's definitely doable. A lot of people do it as well. So it's not, it's not like you'll be the first person, but it's definitely something you got to have a real conversation about.
Before I get into this, I forgot about something I was going to say about the government thing. Also look at usajobs.gov if you're a US citizen. That you can look for pathways positions there. But anyways, for the work-life balance, I'm not married, I don't have any kids, but I started a business last year during right in the height of COVID, and it's been great. Part of it is kind of like a stress reliever. It's just kind of like a side thing, but also when it comes to I got to get my sales tax together, it's really difficult. That's when I find it really hard to balance my research and the business. So some people did warn me about that, and they're right. It's hard managing full-time research with a part-time business. So for me, it's giving me gray hairs, but it's okay. I talk about it to my friends. I have conversations with my mom. She finds ways to ground me. Talk to my advisor about it a lot. And I ultimately ended up talking to counselors. That kind of helped ground me a lot. Grad school, it's mentally draining sometimes. And so for me, it helped me balance myself and take a step back, think about things, think about how I want to organize and manage everything just by talking to a counselor. So that was really helpful.
I may not be able to give suggestion for supporting a spouse or kids, but I want to add some comments for work-life balance. I have to admit, this is an ongoing struggle for me. To me, I cannot separate work and life because I sometimes think work is life. I'm trying to tell myself work is the best form of life. But yeah, I need to do workout every single day, and I'm trying to find a different hobby that can entertain me all the time, and they can turns out to be different form of science communication to the public. So it's all about how you adjust yourself and then find the best pace that you are comfortable with to do your research and live your life.
So I'm married. My husband didn't have a job up here when we first got married, so he was kind of living in North Carolina, where I'm from, and eventually found a job up here. So it was a little bit strained at first because I was, I had a 1-bedroom and I was pretty much spending my whole stipend on rent. And he would stay with his parents at the time. But then once he found a job, things worked out well. And in terms of supporting a family, once you finish classes, you'll have a lot more flexibility in your schedule. So I'm actually about to have a baby in 2 weeks. So
Good.
Thank you. And since I'm just paid to do research, my schedule has a lot of flexibility. And yeah, it's not something with a normal job when you're working full time, you have to go into work. You can't just take a nap during the day, but right now I can, and maybe I'll be working until midnight. But graduate school is kind of like that. If you're doing the traditional route, that is, you usually make your own schedules to do things. And I know some people, I think there was another question, companies, you'll start at a company and they'll actually pay for you to be a part-time student. You'll do graduate school that way, and it might take, 10 years or a longer amount of time, but that's how it works sometimes too. So you can manage that balance as well.
Yeah, sometimes you might end up getting an advisor who also doesn't have a healthy work-life balance. Mine, he keeps telling all the incoming grad students, expect to work 80 hours a week. Don't do that to yourself. That's a bad idea. I burnt out really bad at the beginning of COVID because I was working about 80 hours a week. I don't recommend it. If you're having trouble trying to balance your research life and school and everything like that, talk to your advisor, have a conversation with him or her and say like, hey, look, I'm having trouble with this. I need to take a step back and reevaluate everything. And it works out. Like I talked to my advisor and I burnt out and he was very reasonable with it. So if you're having trouble, you always can talk to someone.
Thank you so much. I really want to be mindful of our panelists' time, so I am going to end it there. But if any of our panelists are interested in connecting, or answering questions after this, feel free to, put your email in the chat if you want. If not, that's totally okay too. But thank you for everyone, LinkedIn too, that's great. Thank you for everyone who attended. Also, thank you so much to our panelists. I know I appreciate it. I'm seeing the thank you messages coming in already from students, so I know that they appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope everyone has a wonderful evening.